All right. So my name is Emily Kaiser, and I'm the Communications Manager for the Washtenaw County Road Commission. And I'll be the meeting host today, along with our project managers for the culvert replacement project we have planned on Old US-12 this fall in Sylvan Township. So today's presentation, we are going to try to keep it brief, and then we'll open it up to your questions at the end. I've got a few housekeeping items to cover at the beginning, and then I'll turn it over to the project managers for the presentation. And then, like I said, we will open it up to questions and answers. So today we have two presenters with us. We have Aaron. He is our senior project manager, and he will be going over some of the details of the project and some of the background. And then we also have James, and James is the project manager for this project, and he'll be going in over the ins and outs of construction and what the schedule will look like and what construction is going to look like. We have both of their contact information here. It'll also be listed at the end of the presentation, and it's also available on our website, which we will show you at the end of the presentation as well. Just a few housekeeping items. The meeting audio and video is being recorded, and it will be posted to wcroads.org in the next day or two. We will send a link to the meeting recording to anybody who's subscribed to receive project email updates once it's been posted. And we'll explain how you can subscribe to receive those updates at the end of the presentation. After the presentation, you will be asked to virtually raise your hand during the question and answer period. If you want to ask a question, I'll provide instruction at that time as to how you can do that, either from your computer, using the Zoom app on your phone, or from your touch tone phone if you called into this meeting. And lastly, the chat feature for this meeting is also turned on. So if you would rather ask your question in chat, you can do that too, and then we will answer those questions in the Q&A session as well. And the chat button is featured at the bottom of your screen. You just open up the chat and you can type your question right there. And again, we'll address those in the Q&A period as well. So with that, I will turn it over to James and to Aaron.
Thank you, Emily. So as Emily noted, I'm Aaron Burkholtz. I'm with the Washtenaw County Road Commission. With us as well as James. James and I work together in the design and construction section here at the Washtenaw County Road Commission. For this particular culvert, both James and I have been working together on this. But as we get into the construction phase of this project, I'd recommend for anyone that has any questions that you reach out to James directly. He'll be involved in the day-to-day operation as the contractor is working on the culvert replacement. The name of the contractor is Sal & Bean Trucking and Excavating. The Road Commission has entered into a contract with Sal & Bean. They're out of Dundee, Michigan, and we have worked with them on past projects. Most recently is the construction of the trail along M52. North of Chelsea, between the Green Lake Campground and North Territorial Road. Unlike that project, the trail project, that was an MDOT project. It was let through the Michigan Department of Transportation. This project is solely contracted by the Road Commission with Sal & Bean because the source of funding for this primary road culvert replacement is solely Road Commission funds. This is coming out of Michigan transportation funds, out of the Road Commission budget. There's no federal or state aid involved in this project. But again, we've had success working with Sal & Bean in the past, and certainly our hope is that we'll have that same success during the replacement of this culvert. So next slide. The question has been asked, why now? The culvert that's currently in place on Old US-12, we do have a location map. The culvert is just west of the off-ramp for eastbound I-94 there at Old 12. And that culvert is deteriorating. It has a weight restriction. This culvert has a 3-unit weight restriction. Essentially what a 3-unit weight restriction is it indicates to truck drivers for a single unit truck, the weight limit that's allowable, for a 2-unit truck, and for a 3-unit truck. So a single unit vehicle, a single unit truck would be like a box truck, like a delivery truck. A 2-unit truck would be what you would typically refer to as a standard semi. And then a 3-unit truck would be like a gravel train. So again, this existing structure has a 3-unit weight limit on it. By comparison, the culvert on Kavanaugh Lake Road only had a 1-unit weight limit. Kavanaugh Lake Road, which we've replaced and we're getting near opening, that had a 1-unit posting before we replaced it of 7 tons. So the reason Kavanaugh Lake Road had a stricter or a lower weight limit was because simply the structure was in worse shape. Structurally, that structure on Kavanaugh Lake Road had deteriorated further than this structure on Old US-12. However, anytime you have to put a weight limit on a structure, there's liability involved. Because you're identifying the structure as structurally deficient. So we've acknowledged that this structure on Old US-12 is structurally deficient. It continues to deteriorate. And the other part of the liability involved in a weight-restricted structure is you're relying on those motor carrier operators, those truck drivers, to comply with the posted weight limit. It certainly is not reasonable to expect that law enforcement or that weightmasters could sit at a restricted structure continually to enforce that weight limit. So there is a reliance on those motor carrier operators, those truck drivers, to comply with that weight limit. If a truck driver would choose to drive over the structure overloaded, there is that risk that the structure is going to fail. So again, for any of the structures that we have on our county road network, we prioritize the inspection and we work to identify funds to replace those weight-restricted structures because of that liability that's involved. Any further deterioration in a structure like Old US-12 oftentimes leads to further weight restrictions, a lowering of the allowable weight limit, and it can eventually result in closure. Again, as a structure becomes deteriorated, as it loses its capacity to carry full loads, we have to increase our inspection frequency of that structure to determine whether or not we need to change the weight limit or consider closure of the structure. And I previously mentioned the Kavanaugh Lake Road bridge. We now refer to that as a bridge because of the size of the new structure. Essentially, for our asset management and for our inspection purposes, any structure that has a span of 20 feet or more is considered a bridge, and that falls into the federal bridge inventory. Right now, the Road Commission has 126 federally listed bridges that are part of our county road network. And we're tasked with inspecting those 126 federally listed bridges at a minimum every 2 years. For structures that carry weight restrictions, we increase that inspection frequency. For the bridge network, for those 126 federally listed bridges, we're required by Federal Highway and by the Michigan Department of Transportation to do those inspections. For structures that are shorter spans, those that are less than 20 feet span, those are considered culverts. And there is no federal or state mandate for the Road Commission to inspect those structures. However, over the past several years, the Road Commission has worked to identify our culverts that are part of the county road network, to have those structures that are 5 feet or greater in span inspected on a regular basis, and to have the structures, those culvert structures, inspected on a more frequent basis if they carry a load restriction, if they're structurally deficient. The Kavanaugh Lake Road Bridge, that is expected to be opened here in the next couple of weeks. The new structure has been installed. We have to complete restoration, and we have to get guardrail installed. So we're getting very close. We waited to work on the old US-12 culvert until we were done with Kavanaugh Lake Road. We recognized that to have both Kavanaugh Lake Road closed and to have old US-12 closed concurrently would really cause issues in this part of the county with the county paved road network. So we intentionally moved forward with Kavanaugh Lake Road first because it was more severely deteriorated. That structure, again, had a 7-ton weight limit on it. So we wanted to get that replaced first, and then with the completion of that, undertake the replacement of the weight restricted structure on old US-12. Next slide. So here's a picture of the existing structure. And I think it's fair to say that you don't have to be an engineer or a bridge inspector to recognize that this structure is not ideal. It's not uncommon for old county road structures to have been expanded in the past. And the crews in the past would use a variety of methods to expand those structures to widen the road. And so you can see here, there is an original structure that lies under part of old US-12, and then there's an expanded structure that's nearer to us in the picture that was like a metal decking that was used. That metal decking was placed on a foundation of what appears to be ready-mix concrete bags. So essentially, many years ago, decades ago, when they widened old US-12 here and they needed a wider structure to accommodate traffic, they simply built adjacent to the old structure by the method of stacking ready-mix bags up, build an abutment on either side, and then laying that steel decking across. Next picture. So our intention in undertaking this project with Salandine is to remove the existing deteriorating culvert. We'll be replacing the culvert, the existing one, with a new aluminum box culvert. We'll be installing new guardrail, and we'll be placing HMA hot mix asphalt pavement there at the culvert. It doesn't extend very far in either direction, but there will be new asphalt placed at the culvert. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to James. Go ahead, James.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Hoy. I will be the day-to-day project manager for this job. My contact information is listed in the slides, and I think a lot of you have my email already, as we've been talking before this. Please feel free to email or call me at any time. I'm always available to answer your questions or concerns. So let's dive into this slide. Just to show you where the culvert is, the orange dot shows where the crossing for Letts Creek goes on old US-12. We will basically just be closing a hard closure at that orange dot. So if you can see the driveway just northeast of there for the FCA proving grounds, and also the Township Hall driveway just southwest of there, that won't be in our closure itself. But we will have one barricade farther down by the ramp on the northeast side, and then one barricade down by Sylvan Road, just to inform people trying to drive through, to let them know that this culvert is closed at this location. Next slide. So this is what the finished product typically looks like. We've been using aluminum box culverts fairly frequently in the last couple of years now, and they are very economical, and they tend to be a lot faster to construct. And overall, the product comes out pretty nice, and it lasts a very long time. Next slide. So the construction schedule, we do plan on starting mid-September, and it will end mid-October. We're currently talking with Salem being our contractor about trying to push up construction due to concerns for elections and the ballots. And we don't want to, deter motorists in the month of October. So we are working with the contractor, and as of now, we haven't gotten an answer back on if they could push up the work schedule. But the contractor did assure us that they can get done within a month. So we do hope to have this open back up in mid-October. This will be weather dependent, of course, and also dependent on contractor delays. But we will try our best to hold to the schedule for everybody. We will be having message boards out on site in advance of road closure. Salem being a contractor informed me that they will be out early next week. And basically we'll have two phases to the message boards. The first phase would be to inform the motorists of the closure on September 14th, if that is going to be the date that we continue to stick with. And then once construction starts, we will have message board stating that the township hall and the police station will be open from the southeast side of US-12. Next slide. So impacts the traffic. All the properties within this project area will be open and accessible. Like I stated before on the map, it will just be the closure, and within 50 feet of that culvert that will be closed. So the township hall and the police driveways won't be affected within our projects. Next slide. As I mentioned before, election traffic, we do want to have it completed before election day, and hopefully, weeks before that too, just for people dropping off ballots. We don't want to be the one in the way of voters on their way to voting. Following with this bullet point, Sylvan Township Hall will be accessible from the southwest for absentee ballot drop-offs or other business. Next slide. So this is our posted detour. This is basically from I-94 to Clear Lake to Francisco, back up to old US-12. The reason we did this is because of the traffic and the volume and the different heavy vehicles that drive through this area. We cannot recommend a dirt road or a gravel road or a lesser capacity road for a detour. We do understand that people that live in the area or people that know the roads will use other routes to get to the Township Hall police station as needed. Next slide. Just to go over the process of a culvert replacement. As you can see in this picture, this is of Kavanaugh Lake Road. Typically, we would start off, once the road is closed, we would start off with removing the asphalt, and then we'll start removing the structure itself. Next slide. And then it really depends on the contractor, but if they have enough space, they can also assemble the aluminum box culvert itself while we're removing the existing structure. The aluminum box culvert is it's basically a Lego set for adults. There's a lot of bolts, there's a lot of pieces. It'll take them a couple of days to assemble this while we get the road and the stream bed ready for the installation of the box culvert. Next slide. So once it's put in and assured that it's in the correct location with the elevations, we do backfill with our typical stone that we backfill with. And this picture shows that. Next slide. And then here's the finished product of Kavanaugh Lake as of last week when I took this picture. We will work on, putting stone near the outlets and inlets of the pipe just to make sure there's no erosion, and also restoring the property back to the way it was. Next slide. Again, so here's my contact information, and that will be my office phone number. And if you have any questions, please visit the project page at our website. If you have any concerns or problems, please give me a phone call or an email. I'm always here to answer your questions. Next slide.
All right, thanks, James. With that, we will turn it over and start doing our question and answer period. So go ahead, Burke.
I've just got a couple notes here. I wanted to note that the Road Commission, as is typical for any of our contracted projects, we will have an inspector on the job site. So again, for any questions, concerns that may arise, James is a great point of contact for that, and the eyes and ears for James in the field is that Road Commission inspector. By and large, anytime we have a contractor doing work on a project such as this, we will have an inspector on that job site with the contractor to ensure the work is done per plan and specification, and to be there as a resource for James, so that if a concern should arise, he can reach out immediately to that inspector and get some answers and find out if there's a concern that's up on the job site. James mentioned that in order for us to safely and efficiently install the new aluminum box culvert here, we do need to do a hard closure. Some of you may have had experience in the past where as a bridge or a culvert is replaced, it's done so in a part width construction fashion. That's not possible here. What we look at is the primarily the condition of the existing structure, and then we also start to look at available width, and ultimately then look at the efficiency of the replacement. I've worked on several part width bridge construction projects, and again, you have to look closely at, is the structural condition of the existing structure capable of carrying that part width traffic, and also it really impacts the timeliness of the replacement. It's far quicker to close a road and to build a new bridge or to install a new culvert than the alternative of trying to maintain traffic while you're doing the construction. So again, in this case, our only viable alternative here is the hard closure. We need to close Old US-12 at the culvert. James mentions that closure, that hard closure, will extend about 50 feet in either direction from the culvert location, and that local traffic will be maintained. So the township hall will be accessible. The Michigan State Police Post will be accessible from the southwest. For the traffic that's coming from the northeast, if they need to get to those locations, they're going to have to follow the detour and come around, or for a lot of local drivers, they know a shorter route. Again, we needed to post a detour on a paved route, considering the nature of the traffic on Old US-12. So it is a lengthy detour following I-94 to Clear Lake Road to Francisco Road around to Old US-12. But again, we needed to maintain that paved route for all traffic. Certainly there will be many local drivers that find a shorter route. And we experienced this on the Kavanaugh Lake Road culvert. When we replaced that structure, our signed detour was Pierce Road to Old US-12. And certainly there were motorists in the area that figured out shorter detours on unpaved roads to get where they were going. But we really were successful with the replacement of the Kavanaugh Lake Road culvert, and we did not see any severe impact to the traffic or to those unpaved roads. We were able to work with our operations department, which we have a great appreciation for, and maintain those unpaved roads, even with a little bit of an uptick in the traffic that was using them. So there's close coordination between the engineering department that James and I work in and our operations department to keep an eye on the local roads in the area. In regards to that paved detour, we have been in coordination with the Michigan Department of Transportation and with the Jackson County Department of Transportation, our counterpart in Jackson County. So we are keeping them informed as well. One other thing I'll touch on is James mentions the schedule for the project. Sal and Bean has committed to starting the project on September 14th. We've asked them to consider, if at all possible, starting the project earlier than that. They said they would consider it, but they need to look at their crew availability. They need to look at the availability of the new aluminum box culvert and other materials that are related to the construction process. But again, Sal and Bean understands the importance of starting this project and completing it safely and as quickly as possible. Based on their reassurances, we are very much confident that we can start the project in mid-September and complete it in mid-October, assuming that no unexpected challenges would arise. And challenges would be things like if the weather would turn. Not only can the weather impact the construction that day, but if we got heavy rains during the construction, that's going to impact the flow in Letts Creek. And whenever you're working on a bridge or a culvert project, you have to consider that stream flow. That impacts your ability to do your work. So just wanted to be clear on that. The other thing we have to consider is utilities, underground utilities. We've been in contact with underground utility owners to verify the location of said utilities. But there are occasions where we work on a project and there is either an unexpected underground utility encountered or a utility that was previously identified is not at the elevation provided to us by the utility owner. So again, utilities can impact a construction schedule. So again, just a few more notes following up on what James said. But Emily, that's all I had. If you want to go ahead and start the question and answer period.
Sure, thanks. So again, if you want to participate in question and answer, it looks like we've got a couple questions in chat. So you're welcome to submit a question in the chat feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Another way that you can ask a question is that if you're viewing the meeting from your computer, you can virtually raise your hand by first make sure you've joined the audio, and then if you see the participants button at the bottom of your screen, you should then see the raise hand button at the bottom right of your screen. So first click participants and then the raise hand button. If you dialed into this meeting from your touch-tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And as the meeting host, I will unmute participants with a raised hand one at a time. I will announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. And we are happy to answer as many questions as possible, but please be respectful of each other's time today. And if your question is answered before you are called on, you can lower your hand by clicking the lower hand button or dialing *9 again. So if you want to raise your hand now, if you have a question, feel free to do so. It doesn't look like we have any raised hands yet, James and Aaron, so let's start with the chat questions. The first one comes from Jan, and she's asking, what is the weight limit for the current structure? How many tons is it?
So the current structure at Old US-12 is posted at 21 tons, 38 tons, and 53 tons.
Okay, and then the other question that Jan had about weight restrictions is she says that the Kavanaugh Lake Bridge was weight restricted to school buses. Is the Culvert Bridge on Old US-12 currently restricted to school buses as well? And what weight class do school buses fall in?
So that is correct. The old Kavanaugh Lake Road culvert with a 7-ton weight restriction was not able to safely carry school buses. And also, just as a note, our road commission crews could not plow that road with our heavy trucks. We actually had to come in from either end and then use a smaller vehicle to plow the structure. So a weight restricted structure can hamper both school transportation and maintenance of the road. And a bus falls into that single unit posting. It's a single unit vehicle. And generally buses are somewhere between 10 and 12 tons loaded. So again, buses are still able to safely cross the old US-12 culvert based on the current restriction, and that being a single unit vehicle, but they were not able to use the Kavanaugh Lake Road structure. They had to follow an alternate route. They won't need to do that for Kavanaugh Lake Road or for old US-12 because the new structures will be capable of carrying full highway loads.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. And then here's a question from someone at Sylvan Township that just says they know that this has been ongoing for a couple of years, and why did it take so long to get this project going? Just concerns about how close it is to the election in near Township Hall.
Sure, and this project has been looked at for some time. One of the things that the Road Commission needed to do was to identify and to budget Michigan transportation funds for the replacement of the structure. We needed to verify the location of existing utilities and to work with those utility owners to ensure we were aware of the location of the utility. For instance, on the north end of this existing culvert on Old US-12, there's an underlying Sylvan Township sanitary force main. So again, that's just one example of a underground utility that needs to be positively identified. And then there was not a need for the relocation of the force main, but for other utilities, as relocation is needed, that takes time for those utilities to be prompted and for that work to be completed. Certainly one other thing that impacts our schedule is the acquiring of the permit for work in the stream, in a water course for the state of Michigan. We have to secure a permit from the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, previously known as the MDEQ. And that again takes time. We need to work with EGLE to size the structure appropriately so that we are both hydraulically correct with the replacement structure, that it's sized appropriately for the hydraulics of the stream. And so we're doing so with an eye to environmental concerns. We cannot work in a stream between April 1st and July 1st due to fish spawning period, and we can't cut trees during, I'm sorry, my mind fails me. We can't cut trees between April 1st and September 30th based on bat habitat. So we have to consider impacts of the project, and that does have an influence on our timeline for replacements.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. It looks like we have another question about kind of on the same topic. This one comes from David, and I'm going to summarize this, and then David, I will share your full comments with Aaron and James after the meeting. But this question, David's question is, his really concern is, you know, Kavanaugh Lake carries a lot less traffic than Old US-12 does, and he is just wondering why that project was sequenced first versus this project going after that, and just a lot of concerns from the township, which we have been speaking about prior to this meeting, but a lot of concerns about the November election.
Sure, and again, as I noted previous, the perspective on the replacement of Kavanaugh Lake Road first, and then Old US-12 second, was based on the condition of those structures. Kavanaugh Lake Road carried a single unit 7-ton weight limit as compared to the current 3-unit posting on the Old US-12 culvert. We also had to consider the timeline, the differences between the contracts involved. Kavanaugh Lake Road was replaced with, it includes, in addition to Road Commission funding, MTF revenue, it includes state and federal funding. That project on Kavanaugh Lake Road was bid through the Michigan Department of Transportation, and as such, that's under a different set of contractual obligations compared to the old US-12 culvert that is directly funded by the Road Commission, fully funded by the Road Commission, this being on a primary road and under a Road Commission contract. So again, that also had an influence on the timing of the two structures being replaced. But again, we did not want to replace both structures at the same time because of the adverse impacts that would have on traffic movements in the area.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Looks like we've got a question from Sylvan Township again, and this one is, will you post a sign at Francisco Road for people coming from Grass Lake to be aware of the road closure?
We will. And our intention, as James mentioned, is in advance of the project starting and old US-12 being closed, we will have portable changeable message signs on the job site. We expect those, we refer to them as PCMS, portable changeable message signs. Those electronic signs will be out on site next week, notifying passing motorists of the impending closure. And then we are going to utilize those same signs after the closure to move them further out to notify to provide additional notification to drivers who are approaching the closure. And certainly one of those signs will be located there at Old US-12 and Francisco Road to try to give drivers as much notice as we can about the closure.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. I do want to mention too, and I'm going to show the group shortly, but we do have a project page on our website with all this information as well. This is where we'll post the project, the recording of this meeting, and we have a FAQ. But on there, if you subscribe to receive project updates or Sylvan Township updates, you will get an alert before the road is closed. So we do a road closure advisory, and then we'll send out periodic updates throughout the project if you subscribe. And then there'll also be an opening advisory when the road is reopened to traffic. And so that project page, you can find it on wcroads.org. I'm just going to pull it onto the screen here briefly. But if you go to our homepage, again, wcroads.org, and you just go to this current projects here under roadwork and construction, you can see all of the major projects that we have planned this year throughout the county, but you can zoom in and go to our project page for the old US-12 culvert. Which is the project we're speaking about here. So you can see on this page here, there's all the information that we've kind of shared, the notice about today's meeting, James's contact information, and then down here is where you can subscribe to receive email updates. If you would like to, you could also just privately message me as the host of your email address in the chat today, and I will add you to that project updates list if you want to do it that way too. So it looks like we've got a few more questions coming in. Let's see. A few more concerns about timing, which I think we've addressed a lot, and we are going to do everything we can to get this reopened as quickly as possible. And let's see. I think if you do have questions, Kathleen from Sylvan Township is asking if people have questions about this project, you can direct them to James or to Aaron. And we are, yeah, it looks like all of these questions are kind of similar themes of concerns about timing, but again, I think we've talked a lot about that. Are there any other questions or anybody that would like to virtually raise their hand to ask a question? You can do so by clicking the participants button and then the raise hand button, or by dialing *9. James and Aaron, anything else you'd like to add for the good of the order here?
I don't think so. We certainly have appreciated everyone's input. We recognize the concerns with the impacts on traffic. And as Emily and James mentioned, we're going to make every effort to complete this project as efficiently, but also as safely as possible, and provide a good long-term investment in Old US-12. There is another weight-restricted structure that's further to the west on Old US-12, and certainly we are working towards identifying a improvement there, but we did not want to work on both of the culverts again at the same time. That would be very difficult based on their locations, but we certainly recognize that we have another weight-restricted structure on Old US-12, and We will continue to inspect that to consider the weight restriction on that structure and move towards a future improvement at that location as well. But we do appreciate the questions, the participation by everyone, the concerns raised, and we will undertake this investment. We look forward to having a new culvert in this location.
Thanks, Aaron. Anything else, James, that you'd like to add?
I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Again, we will post a recording of this meeting to wcroads.org very shortly. And if you would like to subscribe, we showed you how to do that, but you can subscribe to receive project updates on the project page. We are moving forward, and so right now it sounds like we are planning to start the, I think, September 14th, but we will put out those changeable message boards and we'll do a road advisory in advance of the closure to give everybody advance notice. So thank you again for joining us, and we all hope you have a great afternoon.